This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your go-to Iowa-based sports show, hosted by the one and only Eliot Clough.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
What's up, Cedar Valley, and hello to the Hawkeye State. This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your Iowa-based sports show hosted by me, UNI insider for Town Square Media, Eliot Clough, at Eliot Clough on Twitter. We got great stuff ahead on today's show. Randy Reinhardt, Redbird football beat writer from the Pantagraph in Bloomington, Illinois, joins us to preview that homecoming game between UNI and Illinois State at 4 p.m. today in the Dome. Hopefully, we'll be able to see Kurt Warner at that contest. He and his wife will be the VIPs of the homecoming parade, but they will also be in attendance for a few other things going on this weekend. Of course, they were there for the Our Tomorrow campaign kickoff last night on campus, and so very excited for that. I'm going to see what I can do to get an interview with him this morning. And then Scott Richy from the News-Gazette in Champaign, Illinois, will be joining us to preview that Iowa versus Illinois game happening today as well. So battle of the two Midwest states this weekend in those two games. I don't know about you, if there are any Hawkeye fans out there. I would be nervous going into that one against the Fighting Illini. Scott's going to tell us why here in just a few on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. But first, we have been mixing it up a little bit recently, especially in these first segments on Cornstalks and Sports Talk. So today I want to go a little national once again and talk about what is at the forefront of the sports world right now, or at least it was yesterday. People are asking questions, video surfaced, and so we're going to get into it. That video I'm talking about, of course, is Draymond Green punching Jordan Poole in practice. TMZ released that video. They obtained it. I'm sure they paid a Warriors film person to get that, and it was all over Twitter yesterday. Went completely viral, memes like crazy, of course. And first of all, we all heard about it, but the video, like I said, obtained by TMZ. Somebody on the Warriors film staff leaked that, obviously. You have to imagine the person or people that did are going to get fired. I think that's the only solution to that problem, because what else are they going to leak, right? And I think it's incredibly telling for whoever did release it that they don't really want to be successful and further their career in the NBA in terms of the film or coaching or whatever. They should be fired, in my opinion. And I saw somebody on Twitter say, well, I bet they got paid more than the Warriors staff pays them on a regular basis. Well, fine. But it's about the long game, and it's about individual responsibility, not blaming anybody else for what you did. Sorry. Anyway, going forward on this story, I saw this on Twitter, but I haven't been able to find it again today. I don't have a subscription to The Athletic, but as far as I know, this is from The Athletic. It could be wrong, but it's in the same vein of what we do know happened. Supposedly, Poole has been joking a lot about this new extension he's probably going to get, saying something like he's going to have a pool at his house, and his name's Jordan Poole, so he's going to call it the GOAT Pool or something like that. Really stupid joke, and he won't shut up about it. And I mean, he's going to get paid. I mean, the Tyler Hero contract extension, for those of you who don't know, he's from Wisconsin, so maybe that helps you get an idea of who he is, and went on to play at Kentucky. He's become more famous for playing for Miami, of course, but he just signed a contract for 4 years, $130 million. And Jordan Poole is better than Tyler Hero, in my humble opinion. I don't think Tyler Hero is very good. And so I'm assuming he's going to get paid close to or the same amount that Tyler Hero got. And you can see Jordan Poole being the guy who talks about that all the time and won't shut up about it. Like, you just watch his mannerisms on the court and what he's been like in press conferences. And on top of that, which we were going to plan on getting this in a little bit, but I'm going to hit it now. Apparently, Klay Thompson participated in a 3-point contest against Jordan Poole in Japan recently for some event, and Klay said it feels good to humble Jordan Poole. So that's a bit of an indication as to who this guy is. I think we've all been around this type of athlete who won't stop talking about themselves and thinks of themselves as God's gift to the earth because they've had a good, few months at this game. They're really cocky and annoying, and the only people that are around them kind of want to feed off that energy and hype them up in order to, get some of that supposed glory, and then once they fall off in terms of talent or their ability to play the sport, everybody just stops hanging out with them because they suck as a person. And I get that vibe from Jordan Poole. I can't confirm that. I don't cover the Warriors, but that's the vibe I get, and I think that's fair, and I think anybody who covers the NBA or is around the Warriors or watches the NBA regularly would probably agree with that. Now, in regards to Draymond, this type of thing, not necessarily with it getting physical, has kind of happened on a regular basis with Draymond Green. This is just who he is at this point. Like, let's start 7 years back in that final, I think it was 6 years ago, in that 2016 finals where the Warriors gave up that 3-1 lead, and he kicked LeBron in the nuts, in the groin, in the nuts, whatever you want to call it. Totally unnecessarily in the finals when the Warriors had that lead. They lost the following game because he was suspended, and I think the Warriors would have won that title had that not happened. And then after that finals, he texts Kevin Durant and tries to get him to go to Golden State. Ultimately, Kevin Durant does do that. And then after a few years of them all being together in a scuffle, Draymond tells Kevin Durant that they didn't need him because they had already won before without him. Yeah, it's just who Draymond. And on top of that, when Paul Pierce was doing the retire thing where he was going around and trying to get some sort of, appreciation towards the end of his career, he wasn't getting the love that Kobe got, and Draymond was talking to him on the sideline saying, "You thought you was Kobe?" It's just umpteen other things, and now this. With Draymond. Of course, we're talking about the altercation with Draymond Green and Jordan Poole happening earlier this week, at least the news breaking this week, and then the video coming out yesterday on Twitter. And we're talking all about that here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. So ultimately, what I'm getting at here is the laundry list continues to add up for who Draymond is. The Warriors say they're going to punish in quotes, him internally or reprimand him internally, which good. I'm sure that they may fine him. They may suspend him for a few games in the regular season or something. But this is who Draymond is, and this is what's going to keep happening, and the Warriors know it. And I'm sure some of the guys on the roster were actually pretty happy that this happened to get Jordan Poole to shut the hell up. This is who Draymond is. The Warriors use him as their sort of enforcer. He's known as like the, quote, heartbeat of the team. And this situation with Kevin Durant, to me, was different. This guy's a superstar. He's supposed to be this phenomenal player, and he just kind of does his own thing, doesn't really hang out with the team. And this Warriors crew, they've been together really since the get-go of their careers and have done it together. They've gone on to win together. So to me, that's the definition of what you want your team to look like in the NBA, is the Warriors. Maybe subtract some of the crazy stuff that Draymond has done and said, but that's kind of the territory that you come into with having Draymond Green on your roster. Because, yeah, he's the heartbeat of the team, but he's also going to bring some of that, I don't know if baggage is the right word, but some of that extra stuff that you just don't need. If you're going to get one thing, you're going to get the other. You have to take the good with the bad. That's just the way it is with Draymond Green, and there's no getting around it. I mean, and on top of that, in professional sports, these guys are around each other quite a bit, and in college sports for that matter. That's just the way it is. These guys practice together, they live together, and sometimes they hang out together, especially in college, not so much in the pros. Usually guys go off and be with their families and do their own thing, but at least they'll go out to dinner and stuff like that together before games, etc. So these guys are together all the time. Tensions flare for whatever reason. That's the NBA. I'm not really freaking out about it, but there is one thing I'll additionally say about Jordan Poole, on top of what I already said regarding who I perceive him to be as a person, which is annoying and a douche. And I don't know if I could say that, but I just said it. So, yeah, Jordan Poole, not my type of guy. I don't really find myself in a scenario where I see that he is a guy I would want to spend a whole lot of time with. And I think we've all had a teammate or somebody around us like this where it's like, will you just shut up? It was funny one time, and it wasn't even funny the first time. We're talking about your pool because your name's Jordan Poole, and you're going to call it the GOAT Pool because your first name's Jordan. Kind of okay, I guess. It's a play on words. Awesome. You get me to chuckle the first time, but if you keep going, it's just like, would you just stop? This isn't funny. You're being a moron. You're annoying the hell out of us. I think we've all been around somebody like that in a physical sport like basketball. I mean, and with Draymond saying something like that to him and trying to get in his face and telling him to shut up, and then Jordan Poole shoves him, that's when the fist is thrown. That's when the punch is thrown by Draymond. So Jordan, honestly, I'm caught between, after seeing the video and having a deeper understanding of this situation, I'm honestly kind of caught between, Draymond, did you really need to punch him in the face? And Jordan, just shut up, would you? And if you need to be punched in the face, you need to be punched in the face. We'll figure it out later. I'm caught between those things, probably leaning toward the latter, if I'm being quite honest. And on top of that, Draymond's up for a contract extension, a hopeful contract extension here soon too. So it probably just annoys him to the utmost at that point. I see how this escalates. I'd like to think that I'm a cool, calm, collected guy, but I have been in scenarios where it's just like, you are being a moron. I am sick of you. Would you shut up? Obnoxious people drive me crazy. So I had that happen a few times in high school. That's for sure. And in regards to the Warriors, this is not, I've seen people, the hot take people say, oh, this is the end of the Warriors. This is where they fall off. Really? They've been atop the league for 7-8 years now. This is where it falls off. This is what does them in. Kevin Durant doesn't do them in. Jordan Poole does, and Draymond Green does. Draymond has been around there for, 10 years? Okay, I doubt it. Also seen, this tests Steph Curry's leadership. He won't be able... Really? He's led them to, 5 championship appearances and 3 titles, or 6 championship appearances and 4 titles in the last 7 years. This is, a fight before the season starts. This is, this is where it falls apart. No, it's not. If it really escalates to a point, what they're going to do is move off Jordan Poole. Somebody else can have that headache. We'll bring in somebody else, pay somebody else that wants to be part of this and win some more championships with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, 2 of the greatest shooters of all time, who just won a championship. You think this is going to do them in? No, it's not. No, it's not. All right, that's going to do it for this first segment here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk. Don't go anywhere. We got Randy Reinhardt from the Pantagraph in Bloomington, Illinois, coming up on this next segment, previewing that homecoming game between UNI and the Illinois State Redbirds. So stay right here on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com for more Cornstalks and Sports Talk. UNI looking to grab their 3rd victory in a row this homecoming weekend in Cedar Falls. In order to do that, they'll need to get past the Redbirds of Illinois State. On to preview the game with us now on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com is Randy Reinhardt from the Pantagraph in Normal, Illinois. He covers the Redbird football team. Randy, Redbirds coming off a close loss to Southern Illinois. Do you think that may have helped the team's confidence that they can compete with a team that's in the top 25 like an SIU, and UNI kind of approaching that point in this season now with 2 wins in a row?
Yeah, yes, I do. Even though it was a really heartbreaking loss, the way it went down on the last drive with a fairly obvious pass interference call not being made, that the Redbirds might have been able to go ahead there in the last minute. But yes, I think the first 3 games uh, really went how you would expect it. The Redbirds were not going to beat Wisconsin up there. They should have beaten Valparaiso and they should have beaten Eastern Illinois, and they did. So this was really the first game where it was basically a toss-up where either team could win it. And in that way, I think it probably does validate their confidence that they are capable of playing with some of the best teams.
And especially in the MVFC, that's really important. Coming off non-conference where they played, like you said, Wisconsin. They fell 38-0, and then a close game against Valpo, ultimately pulled away against Eastern Illinois, who's not a very good football team, if we're being honest. Same question I put forth to Luke Martin last week when we were previewing UNI versus Indiana State. Does that make it difficult, this total weird positioning in terms of non-conference play where they're blowing out teams and they get blown out? Does that make it difficult to evaluate where Illinois State is at right now?
I think it does in a way. It's just tough to find those non-conference FCS games that are even matchups, partially because the Valley is so good. It's tough for the Valley to schedule those games, and there's just not that many other schools out there willing to take on a Valley team in a non-conference game. And of course, Illinois State has a long-standing rivalry with Eastern Illinois, and whole rivalry trophy involved. So that's going to stick around, and I'm sure Eastern will have their ebbs and flows of being more competitive than they are right now. But yeah, I think it does make it tough for Valley teams.
UNI was ranked last time these two teams played each other. I think the UNI fan base largely thought it was going to be a fairly easy win against Illinois State last year in Normal. The Redbirds end up beating UNI in an upset win. Do you think that factors into where the Illinois State team is mentally coming into this one? Do you think we just talked about that Southern Illinois game being more of a confidence builder for them. Do you think that win last year is a factor into coming into the Dome and playing against UNI? And even though it's quite a bit different, especially offensively for the Panthers this season.
Yeah, it certainly helps, but it seems like I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it certainly seems like in this rivalry that the Redbirds do have an edge when they play in Normal, and the Panthers certainly have an edge in the Dome. The Dome is obviously a very tough place to play. Redbirds have won over the years there, but not very often. So it's when they go in there, they do need to have a certain amount of confidence that they can go into that environment and come out with the win. And even though last year's game was here, that does probably help a little bit.
Looking at the overall record, UNI is 14-4 against Illinois State at home. Illinois State 10-9 at home. So there's your record difference between these two. UNI prior to last year had won 3 in a row against the Redbirds, 2018, 2019, and then 2020 by at least 10 points or more, and then fell last season 17-10 to the Redbirds. So again, looking to this year and some of the differences between the team last year, the big one, I think, for Illinois State is Minnesota transfer at quarterback, Zach Annexstad. He has appeared to be, I've watched some highlights. You can tell that dude played FBS football. That's what I've been able to tell. What can you tell us, having been able to watch every down plus practice, about Zach Annexstad and what he's brought to Normal thus far?
Yes, he's made a tremendous difference. It's remarkable in a way that the Redbirds did as well as they did last year without a passing game. Their passing numbers were some of the worst in the entire country in FCS last year. They just couldn't pass the ball. But yeah, bringing Zach in, he's an older guy. He played at Minnesota. He became a leader right away, even before they started practice. Coach Spack has talked about that numerous times, that even in over the summer, he was organizing receivers to go out to a park to play and throw passes. And he's And as far as his skill set, he's very accurate. He's a very accurate passer. He's got some poise in the pocket. I think what showed a little bit in the first couple of games was maybe his, I don't know if you want to call it rust, but he hadn't actually played for quite a while. It was 2018 when he actually was the starter for 7 games at Minnesota. And those first couple of games, he threw a couple passes that he probably shouldn't have, that were intercepted, but he has cleaned that up a little bit in the last couple of games, and he has been quite efficient.
I was actually just going to ask about that. 5 interceptions over those first 3 games. No picks last week against Southern Illinois, though. I suppose, I guess you just kind of addressed it too. Is that just poor decision-making, like you said, getting the rust busted off a little bit, or what are you seeing there?
Yeah, I think that was a couple of times where there was some poor decision-making. I think there were a couple of times where he looked like maybe a Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers type, where he's so confident that he can make a play that under stress and under a rush, he tries to do something that he shouldn't do. And a couple of those times were picked off. I think one of the interceptions was a good pass that was tipped. So, you can never really tell that in the actual stat sheet. But yeah, he does seem to have learned from that.
Do you know when the last time Illinois State had a quarterback as talented as Zach Annexstad?
That would probably take us back to the national championship game appearance with Trey Roberson. He was the transfer from Indiana. The combination of him and Marshawn Copperidge just made that offense tremendous, and of course they made it to the title game that year.
What year was that?
Let's see. It was the 2014 season. The game was played in January of 2015, but it was the 2014 season.
Got it. So one last question regarding the Annexstad, because he is such a big name going into this one. What's he like in terms of his ability to run the football? Is he mobile?
Yes, he is mobile. He is not a sprinter. I've seen faster quarterbacks, but he does seem to have a good feel for when to leave the pocket, when to take off. They do have some designed runs in the playbook for him, so he's not merely a drop back passer. They will run him once in a while.
Sounds quite a bit like Theo Day right there. Definitely not a sprinter. Ran with it. Definitely, that's for sure. And in regards to the running game, in the past, we've seen some pretty talented running backs come out of Normal, namely James Robinson. Most recently is the name that I think a lot of UNI fans will recognize now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. This appears to be more of a pass-heavy team based on the stats. Where's the running game for the Redbirds heading into this game?
Well, they went into the season with a clear number 1 at tailback in Cole Mueller, and he broke his leg in the first half of the Wisconsin game, so he's out for the season. The next guy they turned to was Winkers Wright, who was a redshirt freshman, really talented kid. And then he hurt his shoulder in the first quarter of the Eastern Illinois game and did not play against Southern. He is back this week. He will start at tailback. I would guess he'll get the majority of the carries, and he's a big kid with good speed. And I think he's clearly their top back, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him get 20 some carries.
Again, we're talking with Randy Reinhardt from the Pantagraph in Normal, Illinois, previewing that UNI versus Illinois State football game this weekend for homecoming here on Cornstalk and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com. Let's flip to the defensive side of the ball. Zeke Vandenberg looks like a dude, just based on his stats. I haven't been able to dive into the film too much. He leads the team in tackles with 44. He's got 10.5 tackles for a loss, 6 sacks. What's going right for him? What does he bring to the table for Illinois State and their defense?
Well, Zeke is a kid who has the measurables to play in the NFL, and that's something he wants to do. I think both Zeke and Coach Spack have pointed to a meeting in Spack's office maybe a year and a half ago, where Zeke asked, well, what do I need to do to go the next level? And Brock just told him, you need to practice hard every day. And it was one of those situations where I don't think Zeke really realized that he wasn't practicing hard every single day. But Spax showed him some film and pointed out some things where he was taking some plays off in practice. And ever since then, I think that really sunk in, and he is working hard all the time. He was never lazy in the first place, but I think there were just some isolated incidents where the coach pointed out where he could improve, and he's really taken that to heart. And you can see him even when there's downtime in practice. It's like he's working on his pass rushing moves with a blocking dummy. He's just always looking for something to improve himself, and it's really shown. He's awfully hard to block off the edge in the pass rush, and he's fast enough to pursue.
And with that said, is it a combination of that strength? Is he a weight room warrior, strength and technical stuff? Is it more so the physical gifts that are working for him, or is he putting it all together?
Yeah, I think he's always had the strength. What Brock pointed out this week when we talked about Zeke was he's playing with a much quicker hands. He's learned how to use his hands better and on his pass rush, and he's giving the opposing blockers very little surface area as far as where he can be hit, where he can be pushed, things like that. So he's made a lot of technical improvements. I think has really advanced him to that next level.
Overall, in terms of the defense, it appears to be pretty balanced. Teams are putting up decent numbers on the ground and through the air, but nothing crazy against the Illinois State defense. Have they faced an offense like UNI has put together so far this season? And do I have that evaluation right, that they seem to be a pretty balanced defense?
Yeah, I would say they are. The secondary is, I would say, is a good secondary. They don't usually play a whole lot of press coverage. They're usually willing to give up some of the shorter gains and make teams really mount drives that take up a lot of plays. But yes, I would say it is a balanced defense. Of course, they did play somebody with that type of skill in Wisconsin, but since then, obviously Northern Iowa will be the best offense that they've faced since then. But then again, Southern Illinois is not a bad offense at all either, with Baker and Cox, and that's a really good offense too. But Northern Iowa is right up there.
Right. And scheme definitely factors in there when we're talking about the quality of offense for UNI, for sure. Bodie Reeder coming in, Ryan Clanton, those two pairing together for the offense. Last thing for you, Randy, before we let you go. I suppose when you're looking at the MVFC as a whole, right now, there are teams that are clearly at the bottom, like a Western Illinois, teams that are clearly at the top, like an NDSU, like a South Dakota State, and Illinois State and UNI appear to be in that middle of the road sort of spot for the MVFC. Do you see this being a close game based surely on what we've seen so far from UNI, from Illinois State here in the Dome this weekend for UNI's homecoming?
Yeah, I think that's an accurate assessment of the league. You've got the two top teams at the top, and then you're looking at, maybe two or three more teams who are going to be in position for a playoff berth after those two teams. So those are those spots that really need to be achieved, I guess, throughout the season. But I do expect it to be a close game on Saturday. The one thing that really seems to come into effect in the Unidome in games I've seen is just the momentum of playing there, the noise. If you make a couple mistakes, you give UNI a pick six or a short field with a fumble, then a game can get away from you. But if you're able to avoid those type of mistakes and not let UNI really get rolling, then it is going to be a close game.
All right. Looking forward to it. I'm sure we'll see each other there, Randy. I appreciate you hopping on.
All right. Thanks, Eliot.
Hey, go give him a follow before we go. It is at PG_Reinhardt on Twitter. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We got that preview for Illinois versus Iowa, the battle of these two Midwest states happening this weekend. We have that preview coming up with Scott Richy from the News-Gazette in Champaign, Illinois. So stay right here on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com for more Cornstalks and Sports Talk. Iowa coming off a tough loss at home to the Michigan Wolverines last week. They'll be back traveling to Champaign, Illinois this weekend to take on the hot Fighting Illini squad. On to preview the game with us now on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com is Scott Richy from the News-Gazette in Champaign. Scott, Fighting Illini, they're rolling 4-1 right now with 3 wins in a row of 21-plus points or more. What has got this team on the tear that they're on right now?
I think you have to start with the defense, and it's a defense that's allowing just slightly more than 8 points per game, and hasn't given up a touchdown at home yet this season. So interesting with Iowa coming in with an offense that has had its struggles. What that might be, but it really is maybe defense first. But one thing Brett Bielema talked a lot about last year was trying to play complementary football, and just between offense and defense, special teams, all phases. Didn't really get that so much a year ago. There's more of it now, and I think the fact that he made a change to offensive coordinator after 1 year was sort of telling in that regard. But the offense is playing better under Barry Lunny Jr. And hitting in the transfer portal for Tommy DeVito, quarterback has certainly helped. But the offense is giving the defense a little more help these days. But it really is. It starts with Ryan Walters' defense and defensive line that is sort of just dominating the line of scrimmage, setting the tone there, and a secondary that has multiple playmakers behind them. So they have the pieces. It's just never really all come together very often for Illinois as a football program, but it seems to this year. And obviously they're riding high after a win at Wisconsin.
Having grown up an Iowa fan, I definitely know that things haven't quite come together for the Illini in quite a while. We'll get to that here in a second, but the defense is the talk of the team for Iowa. As you mentioned, Iowa, the offense having its struggles, which is probably the understatement of the year, where it's at right now for the Iowa offense is rough. But from what I've seen, Illinois, it's got a nasty defense too. You just mentioned it. Where's it at right now in matching up with the atrocious Iowa offense?
I think an Iowa offense that has not been very good so far this season is going to run into a problem with this defense. And Illinois has been particularly good against the run. Gave up 2 rushing yards to Wisconsin. And then obviously there's some, Graham Mertz taking a couple sacks here, affected that number, but Braylon Allen didn't do anything for the Badgers. And Chaz Malusi did just as much, which was basically nothing. Iowa hasn't run the ball maybe as well as they're used to. And I think a lot of that is they're facing more men in the box because the passing game is not effective. Spencer Petras is completing 55% of his passes, 2 picks, 2 touchdowns in 5 games. It's not there. So you can put 8, 9, if you want to get frisky, 10 men in the box maybe against Iowa. And I'm not even sure Illinois needs to do that. Their defensive line has been so strong, and it starts with Calvin Avery at nose tackle, and he doesn't have huge countable stats, but he occupies multiple blockers, gets good push, and that allows Keith Randolph and Johnny Newton on either side of him to make a ton of plays. And you don't often see defensive linemen at the top of a team's tackles leaders, but Keith Randolph is number 1 and Johnny Newton is tied for number 2. Those guys are making a ton of plays in the run game. And on the back end, Iowa does throw the ball. Kendall Smith has, and I'm not sure it matters anymore who plays free safety for Illinois in Ryan Walter's system, because Kirby Joseph had a breakout year a year ago, ended up with 5 picks and got drafted in the 3rd round. Kendall Smith didn't make it off the was essentially the practice squad until late last year, which was his 5th year with the team, comes back because he redshirted and has a COVID year, and now he's starting. He's got 3 picks. So that free safety spot, I think, just is set up where they can be a ball hawk, and he has certainly gone after it. So Iowa's got a pretty stiff challenge, I think, coming up on Saturday.
I was actually just going to mention all 4 of those names that you just hit. I was going to say, I bet these guys are just licking their chops going into this game.
Yeah, and it's Keith Randolph, Johnny Newton, Brett Bielema coined the nickname last year as the law firm of Newton and Randolph, or Randolph and Newton, just depending on who you want to list first. But they're those guys have some fun with it, and but they play off each other. Johnny Newton had a huge game at Indiana, and then on the bus ride home, Keith was after was so what'd you do here? What'd you do here? I gotta get my numbers now. They're a really good compliment to each other. Just they're friends, but they also want to beat each other out. And I think given the opportunity to go after Spencer Petras or whatever Iowa running back, they're going to be a constant presence in the backfield.
Again, we're talking with Scott Richy from the News-Gazette in Champaign, Illinois, previewing that Iowa versus Illinois game happening this weekend. We're doing that here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com. Another question for you regarding this Iowa defense, offense, the difference between these two teams. Have the Fighting Illini faced a defense like Iowa this season? Because it doesn't appear that the Badgers are anywhere near that at this point in time.
I'll say everyone would have thought Wisconsin would be, but it turns out maybe not. They're not quite as good as they have been, and even then Wisconsin kind of was able to slow down Chase Brown through 2+ quarters. Then he broke loose for a 49-yard touchdown, and just had himself another 100-yard game. The Iowa defense, for all of its offense's faults, the defense has been good. I think Illinois is maybe first in scoring defense, and Iowa's third. Points could be at a premium on Saturday. I wouldn't be surprised if either team, if they got to 20+, I think that's probably a good showing. So it'll be interesting to see what Illinois' offense can do. I think they're feeling pretty good about themselves because even if Wisconsin's down, to do what they did against them in Madison, I think is just a nice little bit of confidence. And Chase Brown, he's got 6 straight games dating back to the regular season finale last year where he's topped 100 yards. He's leading the nation right now in rushing by 2 yards, but he's still number 1. And he's going to get his. I think it could come down to how if Tommy DeVito can be the consistent quarterback he's been through the start of the season, where he's completing a really high percentage of his passes. He's not forcing things, and they're still able to move the ball pretty well through the air. If they can get what they've gotten through the game so far this season, I think that's maybe all they're going to need, as long as the defense keeps playing at such a high level.
That's definitely an advantage for the Fighting Illini is not forcing passes, because what Iowa's defense does is create turnovers. Just ask Cooper DeJean. I don't know if you've been able to see much of that this season, The Iowa defense and how they're able to turn the ball over, specifically DeJean and a few of these other guys. It's the Iowa defense is full of ball hawks. So if DeVito can do that and continue to make the smart passes, not force anything, Iowa might. I'm not going to say they're going to allow the most points they have all season coming off that loss to Michigan, but it may very well get ugly.
Yeah, and Illinois had some turnover trouble at Indiana and then home against Virginia. 9 turnovers between those 2 games combined. Then they kind of may realize can't do that. So really kind of controlled that better against Chattanooga and Wisconsin. But I think one of the staples of Barry Lunny's offense is a lot of bubble screens, slant passes, short, easy completions that Tommy DeVito can make that put Illinois' wide receivers in space. And if you got a guy like Isaiah Williams, give him a little bit of room, he can turn a screen pass into a 25-yard gain just because he's one of, if not the best athletes on the team. So they don't have to force the ball downfield to be successful, and they're starting to work in, a little bit more, of the vertical passing game. Pat Bryant's been important in that at wide receiver, but they don't have to do it and might not want to do it. Like you mentioned, Iowa's got a secondary that is prone to jumping routes and winning 50-50 balls, and just they're going to take it away if you give them the opportunity. So don't give them the opportunity.
Now, we talked a little bit about that win against the Badgers on Wednesday, our show Wednesday here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com, about Paul Chryst being fired after this loss and how it relates to Iowa, but I didn't really get into it too much for Illinois. Do you think these guys for the Fighting Illini really took pride in that win last weekend? Was it sort of we're doing this for Coach Bielema kind of game?
I mean, not too much, and mostly because Brett Bielema tried to downplay, his role in that as much as possible. I mean, obviously he had a successful run at Wisconsin, and it was there for a number of years, but he really tried to make it about the team. And the bigger thing for the teams, like they hadn't won in Madison in 20 years. Like there's a good number of players on the team that weren't born yet the last time Illinois won at Wisconsin. So I think that was maybe the tipping point. Like they understood that was something, and they made a little bit of Illinois football history. So I think they all knew, like Brett Bielema, was, a Big Ten championship caliber coach at Wisconsin, but I'm not sure how much that served as motivation.
Now, in regards to Bielema and his relationship with the players, maybe disconnect from this win from last week. Is he loved by his team there in Champaign?
I think so. And just the way, it's not just him, it's his whole staff. And the way the players talk about it is that they have this sense of confidence that I think the staff has instilled in them, just because there's a belief from the staff is like, okay, we put you guys in the right position to do this. Like you have the talent, you have the ability, the skill. You just have to execute. And I think, as they've seen positive results, that has grown. Just even a guy like Calvin Avery at nose tackle came in 2018 as Illinois' top-ranked recruit, a huge win on the recruiting trail for Lovie Smith. And then we played 4 years and didn't do much. But, this coaching staff has unlocked something in him, a belief in himself that, he can be that kind of disruptor, up front, that, he's playing as well as he's ever played. So I think that's a big part of it, is like the players have this feeling, like the coaches believe in them to, execute and to play good football.
Last question for you, Scott, before we let you go. Illinois, they've lost 8 in a row to Iowa, winning just one of the last 14 matchups. Why is this weekend going to be different for the Fighting Illini?
I mean, before this crazy season had happened, I wouldn't have said that necessarily would have been. But then I watched Illinois win at Madison for the first time in 2 decades. I mean, I was a sophomore in high school when that happened. And that was, unfortunately, a long time ago. This is a different Illinois team. I've had to recalibrate my own thoughts on this team, just because of the way they've played. And the defense has been better than I expected, because they had some holes to fill. They lost several starters, and you wonder, is the next guy up going to be able to fill that role? And then the offense with a new coordinator is like, I've seen a lot of bad Illinois offense over the last several years. Like, could it be different enough? And at least right now, the answer to all of that's like, yes, it is different enough. So, I mean, the last time Illinois beat Iowa, it was in Champaign, but it was 2008. So I was still in college. Again, it's been a long time since something like that has happened. But our whole staff does picks every week for the Illinois game. And I'm picking Illinois to win, because they're just, at this point, I think, a better team than Iowa.
You were in college. I was in 5th grade. It's been a hot second. It's been a little while.
Okay.
So that game happening this weekend in Champaign. Iowa versus Illinois. That'll be a fun one. Scott Richy from the News-Gazette in Champaign joining us today on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk. He's at SR Richy on Twitter. Scott, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And that'll do it for this week's episode of Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on this October Saturday morning. Thanks so much for tuning in, folks. Don't forget, before you go, make sure you subscribe or follow, depending on where you're listening to this podcast. Subscribe on YouTube as well for those guest segments. You can see videos of us going back and forth there. That's Eliot Clough on YouTube. If you want more Iowa-based content and higher quality content, make sure you leave that rate and review on Apple Podcasts as well and anywhere else you're listening. That does truly help us out a lot. So once again, folks, my name is Eliot Clough, at Eliot Clough on Twitter. I'm a UNI insider for Town Square Media. You can follow me and follow along for UNI updates today at that homecoming game against the Redbirds. And this was another week's episode of Corn Stalks and Sports Talk.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.